So I would like to start with. It would be interesting in knowing that, because I was talking to, we have a very good word for this belonging and identity in Gujarati. I come from Gujarat. There is a word called asmita. It combines identity and belonging. So is there any word, I don't know if in the Goan Konkani language, but it means like when the because when you are growing up, the Goa must have changed in all these years. So with which Goa you identify yourself with? Because I was talking to our beloved Damodar Mauzo Bhai yesterday, and he was telling, if you come to Goa, if you speak to someone in English, he will answer in English. If you speaks in Hindi, he will answer in Hindi. So there is people won't find need for to speak in Konkani, right? But the scene must have been different when you are growing up. So with which Goa you identify yourself with, and we would like to know, like, the growing up years, your childhood years, the 60s, 70s Goa, and the identity of that Goa.
Okay, the very fact I did Nasoya sort of answers, because that is set in even before I was born. It starts in 60 and goes up to 74 and then culminates in 95. So that is the Goa I identify with, the earlier Goa till 95, and then things changed, and 2000 after the millennium things further changed. Yeah, but the Goa I identify is I come from a very small village called Galjibag, so which was stuck in time. Yeah, so that's the Goa it's sort of interpreted in the film, and that's the sort of Goa which you see in Nasoya. So the contemporary Goa is I have yet to explore. So maybe the next film, I don't know.
If you can elaborate on, if you can elaborate more over, the your childhood days, like the community you are living in, the village or maybe a town, small town, maybe your festivals, the music, the dance that influence you, and maybe the literature you are reading in your growing up years. So I would like to explore, I would like to discuss that growing up years in terms of the inspirations, the films you might be watching.
Yeah, okay, growing up, yes, the films, I can say you the films I didn't watch, because in Kankon and Galjibag, we used to have one film a year. Okay, the iconic Nirmon, they used to screen every summer holidays. So the buzz around the film used to be so much. We used to run behind a vehicle we used to promote. And then on the day of the film, I used to invariably fall asleep. So I never got a chance to see the film. But I know the excitement around that film. I didn't grow up on cinema as such. So in that this, and in terms of schooling, I mean in terms of literature, I think in the school we could pay 25%. We could watch Laurel and Hardy's and Charlie Chaplin's, and we were exposed to cinema in that sense. But nothing to say, okay, inspired me at that, because we were just consuming things, and I had no clue about what I wanted to be at that era. So yeah, so it was a natural childhood, up to more mischief than actually chasing literature.
Right. Yeah. So, then, at what stage of your life that you have decided that you would like to explore with this filmmaking medium? But exactly how your entry did happen, actually?
Yeah, see, I was interested in photography, so I used to make
Started with photography.
Yeah, photography. I used to catch hold of my friends and take them to the month in Margao and make them pose, and then with that same excitement come to Panjim and develop that role and see the prints. So that was my exposure, starting point. My brother, who is in the audience, bought me my first SLR that time when I was in 9th standard. So with that I could explore photography, and by the time it was 11, 12 standards, I pretty much sure I wanted to be a cinematographer. So then I headed to Bombay, And then yeah, I started with cinematography, then editing, and now directing. So the journey started from there. So I was started interested in photography, images, and then changed into cinematography, and then
It's been a
went on.
more organic than
Yeah,
you never thought about the whole like uh, it happened and
yeah.
you
See, I
started
wanted.
exploring the different media departments of filmmaking one by one
Yeah,
and
I
that
wanted to join FTI, but FTI became a post-graduation course. So I started working and doing graduation. By the time, after 3 years of working, I didn't feel the need to do be formally educated. So I just carried on. So I why go to a institute, learn for 4 years, then unlearn, and then make us. So I just learned on the job actually, and I interacted. I mean, I collaboration and whatever I learned on the job.
okay so while I was going through the visuals of your film,
Mm.
I have seen those you know jazz groups and so I have read somewhere that in late maybe 80s or 90s,
Mm.
so they used to perform in South Mumbai and the groups were from Goa, and then later on maybe you can correct me,
Mm.
but I have such impression, I have read it somewhere that the Goan groups used to perform in restaurants in Goa and then later on the whole culture died out and then they moved to the Bollywood and your film also somehow depicted touched that thing. So like moving out of Goa for prosperity and other purposes, and then you yourself moved out of Goa a few years ago, and now you are working in Mumbai.
Mm.
So how you deal with that alienation?
Mm.
You the Goa is the whole milieu is different from Mumbai, a mega city.
Mm.
So, would you like to tell us about that? Like how does that migration happen and what are the pains of that migration?
Yeah, so the earlier musicians, I think, moved due to lack of opportunities here, and there's a lot of other impact on it. Why Goans moved out of Goa, and yeah, so music was one they took to, and which gave them a day job sort of. And when jazz came was introduced with in India, so they were the first one to step up because they could read the scores and just be part of the band. And so that was the glory days of 50s and I think yeah 40s 50s 60s actually, yeah. And then there was prohibition by the Maharashtra, I mean Bombay state, that time where Gujarat and Maharashtra was one state. Yeah. And yeah, so that put an end to the entertainment because alcohol was integral part of the
Okay, so
clubs.
that division of Maharashtra, Mumbai state,
Not division.
somehow impacted
There was prohibition before that in
in Mumbai state
1955.
also.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Prohibition of alcohol, whatever.
okay.
So that sort of reduced the musicians, the gigs. They could only play underground. So I think it's yeah, it's after independence we wanted to assert ourselves, our culture, Indian culture, and wanted to get rid of a lot of Western things. So I think it was just a collateral damage,
Okay.
and then they had to move to. I mean, but that also turned to an opportunity where they moved into the Hindi, I mean Bollywood, and made a name for themselves there.
So, as we were discussing just before the session, like you are coming from first generation of filmmakers, Goan filmmakers.
Mm.
So, as we see in the regional cinema, like I come from Gujarat, so we have, there is no any such uh, aspiration to become to make a local Gujarati films, and the similar scene is here, I guess, also in Goa. So how difficult it was to be a first generation filmmaker here in Goa, and like how your the thought about your first film came into your mind and how you started and how you each like did you collaborated with the Goan technicians or technicians from Mumbai and how the whole project went? So if you can elaborate little bit about your first film and the project.
Yeah. So basically, I didn't struggle to make this film, but yeah, after a successful career in advertising, I wanted to do something back for the state of Goa. So that's how Natsoya was in the pipeline for a long time. And when I set out to do it, there are a lot of people from Bombay, the technicians, who all jumped in to help me out.
Okay.
And so did my family and friends pitched in to make it happen. So yeah, so it was made it, and but it was not made with a eye on the commercials. So we didn't. I knew it will never make box office hit out of it, but yeah, but it will create a perception that uh, about Konkani cinema. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted more people to be doing films than me doing films. So it was that creating a perception about Konkani cinema and saying it's people will come and watch. And true to it, yeah. After that, I think there were a lot of films made in Konkani. So yeah, hoping out of quantity will come quality one day. Yeah,
So
we'll get there.
okay, so it was one of the motives of like to start a culture also when you were started
Yeah,
initially.
the way we released it, the way we handheld it, the way we, I mean, was to make sure that uh, it will start a movement. I mean, it will create opportunity. Like we released it in a very unconventional way. We didn't go the route what normally used to happen in Goa, like release in the multiplexes and all. We didn't do it. We released it like literally went begging to open the venues which existed in Goa and made them cinema ready and started exhibiting it there. So, and we left our footprints in the sand for people to follow. And I think people did follow. But now I think those venues are also out of bounds
Right.
for whatever reasons, I don't know. Yeah.
So through the journey of Nacho Campasa, what I can relate it with one of my favorite filmmakers, Alfonso Cuarón.
Mm.
He has always been making commercial Hollywood films, and he was a uh, commercially successful director. Then suddenly, after a few years, he made this wonderful film Roma.
Mm.
It was a black and white film, and he somehow tried to uh, identify with his identity, a Mexican identity, a Latin American identity, and again you have tried to explore the Goan identity, but somehow your film and his film also, it travel throughout, across world, and people can identify with different identity, different milieu, different belonging. So what exactly happens when how like uh, of course it is about the basic human emotions, but again you are depicting some different world, so how different cultures relate to such films, and like people celebrate such films and give a good response commercially also. So what do you think, like why people like such films and they appreciate and celebrate such films which comes from a different culture?
So I think, see, I wouldn't, I mean, if there's a good story, I think it will strike a chord with everyone. Yeah, so identity isn't what we did with Natsoya was nothing extraordinary. We were just honest with what we were dealing with. Okay, so the culture, the places, the spaces, the styling, the type of people we casted. So there was great honesty in it, nothing more to it. And I think that sort of also showed, otherwise there was a misunderstanding about, I mean, misidentity about Goan and Goa. Like, who are those Goans? I mean, if you see Bollywood, every Goan is portrayed as a drunkard. Okay, and at the same time in my film, every Goan drinks, but there's only one drunkard, or he might be a madman. So I leave it up to the perception. Yeah. So those are the things you're breaking it down. Also, the misconceptions.
Cliches.
Yeah, cliches. What has been portrayed. Yeah. So I think, yeah. So it was made for many purposes, and I think I took a, I mean, velvet gloved comments. So only in conversation then I can say what was done, why, how, what. Otherwise, yeah. Otherwise, I leave it up to the people to interpret.
So you had like inclination from beginning towards music and to explore the theme of your film, yeah. So or you when once you have a story, you started exploring music, or you had it from your like early days, like from childhood. You have like jazz and the things which you have showed in your film. So, could you tell us more about the identity of through music, Goan music, and the culture of music in Goa?
Mm. Yeah, so I don't know. See, when I wanted to do a Konkani film, like set about thinking, I knew it had to be about music. But to tell you fact, I learned a lot when I decided. The day I decided, I started researching and searching and refining and talking to people from that era and whatever, and try to understand that world, where to set it in. Then I realized, okay, this guy is, there's much more to it than what we sort of take it. And this guy's contributed a lot. So then the film changed. It became a responsibility how to portray them. So there's a lot of effort that went into it in that sense to uh, and that's how that it became about music, and then we percolated, I mean sort of narrowed it down to a set of songs. And so what that for me, the love story or the romance is just a excuse to also say the bigger other comments also. So I think, yeah, so that is how the film arrived. So it's
Okay,
a fictional, story, but uh, it makes a lot of comments which I think which the Goan, those are facts.
right. So, uh, it's also commenting about the social political
Yeah,
uh, arena also. Like,
correct.
and when we talk about identity, and we are living in a time when the things are changing really fast. If uh, if I talk about Gujarat, the recent news of the redevelopment of Sabarmati Ashram, now that it is a Gujarati identity, it's a national identity, also it's a world heritage. Similarly, similar things happen in Punjab also with Jallianwala Bagh, which was later. Now it is, they are changing it into commercial. So irrespective of the political parties, the things are changing. The places of our cultural heritage, the identity, the belongings, they are changed for a commercial purposes. So is it also the case with Goa, like the places of identity, the beaches, or maybe you can tell us more about that, which are getting commercially exploited and which is destroying the identity?
Yeah, so I'll tell you my take on it. See, since Goa doesn't have a film culture, so there's not much moving images about Goa. Correct. So that is why, like whatever, my film sort of documents. So that's why the honesty in the cinema has to be there, because it's a document for the next generation who might not see this world. Yeah, this sort of Goa. So it's ever changing. So one way is to document, and another thing is also to entertain, and that's how the film was made. Okay, even the next film which I'm thinking, or which is there in my head, is again I want to set it in the next decade. So because that it's not just political onslaught, there's a lot of other onslaughts which will change the landscape and the cultural eventually. If not today, tomorrow, I don't know how long it takes. It might delay it, but yeah. So it's important to document what Goa is. I think it will live. I mean, the Goa I know, I grew up with. I mean, that's what I'm trying to, what try to do, and what I'll try to do going further future. I mean, try to document a Goa which will change eventually, like how your Gujarat or Jallianwala. But besides political, even the other
Right.
uh, uh, migration or whatever. happening.
So you have raised a very interesting point actually. I was just thinking about this while you were talking that it's also a medium of documenting that particular culture, time, people into time slot of history. As when I was making my last film, I have a very important scene of that film was shot at Sabarmati Ashram. I didn't know that it's going to be redeveloped later on. So my film became the last film which was shot at the original Sabarmati Ashram. Now it is somehow documented in that film. So you have raised a very, so this is also, yeah, so this is also, this way films can, they can archive the identities
Correct.
of the places and people. Yeah, so this is also a wonderful observation, right, right. Okay. So, Bardroy, so as you said, you have not seen many films while you were growing up and during childhood. It was not easily available to you. So then I'm wondering, like, at later stage when you ventured into the filmmaking, so what are the names filmmakers they really inspired you, and their films you can, if you can talk about maybe the literature also that inspired you in your work, because filmmaking is it's the only art which combines all other arts, as we know, the music, the literature, the history, and everything. So there must be inspiration from other art forms also. So, and again, the art forms of Goa also, when you are documenting Goan experience through your film. So, would you like to tell us something about the other artistic identities of Goa which you might have explored during the research of the film, or maybe otherwise,
Mm,
apart from music, like
yeah, so I think apart from music, uh, like my exposure to has not been to cinema as such, but there were posters always in town, and the film used to take months to make its way in the theaters, and we used to make our own stories looking at the poster. So we were creative even then. So so that was the culture. I mean, but to go to the cinema need not be, but to be engaged in those posters, go to the cinema halls and watch those snapshots. They used to display it in the sort of a window there of the cinema. I mean, what film is going to come, and we used to discuss our own stories. So that exposure was there, but not necessarily watching a movie. Yeah, and then next, what you asked?
yeah. So again, maybe if I we can add up to this, like you started working as a cameraman, the initially, and then you are coming from the first generation, so you must have seen the technical changes also, in the filmmaking whole process, because when I worked with one of the director, the senior director, and he was telling me that they wanted to shot some scene at the border of Kutch, and they have to take the whole crane to the place, and they have to travel all the way to the location, and when they reach there the sun has already set. They have to come again next day, and now the filmmaking has become much easier. Everything is much accessible. You can take drone shots and everything, but you have experienced all the technical changes all these years. So it must be a thrilling journey. I must say it must be an exciting journey throughout. And so, how you find yourself among the new developments into the technical developments? This is a more technical question. So in terms of camera, or in terms of the other techniques which involve into post production, or maybe filming the film. Yeah. So tell us something about the technical changes happened during all these years?
Yeah, the biggest change I think is from analog to digital, right? So I started with the analog days and then adapted to the digital world and survived.
So
Correct?
you have to think about the prints also those
Yeah, yeah.
days.
Those days, see, those days was you have to think it through.
Right.
Okay, it was not the era of undo. We couldn't do undo.
Right.
We have to redo.
You have limited prints and you have to.
No, as in you do, like today on a digital world, you can undo, no?
Right,
So
right.
you can do undo at many levels now. In a manual world, there's nothing called undo. You have to redo. Whatever process goes wrong, you can't say sorry
Right.
and type Control Z. So that was not there. So we had to think it through. So there was very little scope for error, margin for error. So I think that's the only discipline. In terms of discipline, what is the changes? Otherwise, technology can change, you can adapt to it, but the discipline is missing. I mean, also because it's easily, you can do many things now. So you don't think it through,
Right.
because there is scope for error. But earlier it was not like that. Earlier you had to think through the processes and then commit. And if you had to commit a mistake, then it will cost you dearly, because you have to redo it. So that's the only big change.
Okay, so it's a commercial aspect was more
Commercial
important.
and yeah, the discipline, I would say.
Okay.
You're much more tighter.
So when once your film got released in 2014, the whole culture has started, and maybe sorry, new filmmakers uh, might have entered onto the scene, on Goan films. So, what was your observations about the other filmmakers, young budding filmmakers here? Sorry. Or would you like to advise them something, or maybe not advice, but like what are your observation about the new budding Goan filmmakers?
Mm, I don't know. I've not seen much, but whatever little I've seen, it's a good sign. As in, and as I said, out of quantity will come quality, and yeah. So they just have to be honest with their stories and not get inspired. I would say get inspired by the world around you, then versus the other industries, no, like how we say Bollywood or Tollywood or whatever. So have your own language for your own state. I think that is what requires.
Because what I have, my personal observations are, uh, because it's not because I'm coming from, I have a literature background, but what I feel is the new filmmakers, they are not reading much of the literature. So when you are venturing into filmmaking, I have an impression that they should have exposure to the literature, their language, their dialects. They should know the milieu, whole cultural aspect of. So that is what is lacking nowadays with the new filmmakers. That is what I have observed. So if you would like to add into that, like what could be the advantage of if the filmmaker is reading a literature, contemporary literature, how it could help him in making a film, or maybe the whole process, or to understand the film, or maybe the characters. So, because I know many filmmakers who are not reading and they are making films, and they are also making successful films. It's not like that, but you are missing that depth.
Mm.
And when we are talking about the identity and belonging, so it revolves around everything. Music, you made a film on music, literature, then history and everything. So that is what I feel. And if you want to add to that, the new filmmakers, about which they are not reading at all, and so
Yeah. So one is that I don't know. But as I said, I'll still go back to honesty. Okay, if you're honest with your story, honest with your setup, I think you'll have a great film. And keep your eye for detail. Like I don't read a lot, but I watch a lot of documentaries. I read a lot of crap, as in
You are
nothing.
reading people basically.
I'm just reading anything what comes in my hand, but nothing constructive. Like we say, okay, I've read this guy, I read this author. I don't follow anything like that. I just read whatever comes into my hand. So I have a worldview of anything, whatever. So if something interests me, then I go into the depth. Otherwise, no. Yeah. So as a filmmaker, I think your detailing and your honesty, and once you have your story, then you manipulate it only when need be to make it effective. Otherwise, if you manipulate it from the start, then you won't have a good film either ways. So I think so detail and honesty, and you'll have a film which is rooted in its identity. I think you can make a Konkani film, but if the characters are talking or dialogues like Shah Rukh or the influences which you have, then you lost a plot. Correct. So you have to not have those inspirations sometimes, and what is your story, and the people should be that. So otherwise you set out to make a Konkani film, but at heart it's influenced by Bollywood. This, so I think that also I've seen, but but I hope people will realize it and make more honest films.